in the end, we look at this as ecosystem work. When you boil it all down, it's infrastructure, it's technology, it's social change, it's all these different things, but really it's ecosystems, and it's a bunch of different ecosystems connected together, right? And the ones we're focused on today really is Broward and Chicago. Two collabs. What a collab really represents is a communing of common goals and shared vision, right? To bring together stakeholders, private, public, government, institution, student, parent, and the like, and the idea here is let's get everybody together, let's get them, coordinated around common goals and shared vision, and let's actually move that through to real impact and change that can actually, make a better life for the students, right? And so that's what we're doing. And we're doing this actually really, really successfully across the globe in a lot of different places. I only listed a couple here, but there are a lot of different labs. We have, statewide labs in Colorado and North Dakota, and, we're doing one with Lego that's an international lab, and Asia Pacific has 7 countries, and UNESCO just joined to expand it to 65 by next October. So, there's a lot of just really incredible work happening around the globe that this Internet of Education is moving through. And it's also an exciting moment because, there's that moment where you have a great idea and then it kind of stands up and becomes an avatar and walks off, and you get to see it happen. This is happening around the globe. We're hearing all the time, oh, there's an Internet of Education infrastructure, workforce, in some country or whatever. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know. And so that's happening, and it's happening, really quickly because we launched this in Davos in January. So it's taken on a life of its own in less than a year. And so why are we doing this? When you really think about it, it's the most existential challenges we're going after, right? And at the root of it, our theory of change and, our theory for why this is happening is the fragmentation of the data, right? Schools don't talk with other schools, don't talk with universities, don't talk with employers, don't talk with governments. And because of that fragmentation, there's no data. So human capital investors, governments, institutions, people like Dan, it's really, really, really hard to understand how to invest because you don't have good data to tell you whether it's making impact or not, right? And so because of that, skills gaps are growing in every city in the nation. Equity gaps are growing in light of COVID. We know that, homework gaps have become, full-fledged equity gaps, and this is a crisis, and data standards aren't connecting, et cetera. And when you think about how to solve this, our theory of change is up in the top right corner, right? The way to solve this is to center it around the learner and the employee, right? If the learner and the employee have access to their data in a centralized place for themselves, then we can start to do really exciting things with new algorithms that allow for us to, create data trusts around that data. And so how does this work? It comes down to connecting the systems first, right? This is a supply chain issue. We have to connect all the systems, the ID systems, the learning management systems, the HR systems. The protocols are well underway. They're being designed, they're being deployed and tested, and they've already been proven, right? And from there, you can create a value chain across this whole ecosystem, right? Every layer, you can start to understand how to connect that. And, you can start to transfer data between everyone in really safe ways using new proprietary, or new open, non-proprietary, protocols to allow for us to transfer the data without, sacrificing privacy or intellectual property. And so this is the future. This is what's happening now. And so how do we get there? How do we actually go from where we are today to a future where this is possible? And this is really the big question. And the best way to think about this, the best analog is to think about the GPS, okay? I can get a sandwich, a really great sandwich really quickly just by dialing it into my phone. I can click it, I can find it, I can navigate to it. We take this for granted, but this didn't happen overnight. There was a huge industry that had to go into this. We had to have great ideas and, launch white papers and then put up, satellites into space and then learn to triangulate and then get data out of it and then, educate stakeholders and, on and on and on until finally it's commonplace. Well, in a similar way, if we're going to navigate this new economy, we need a GPS ecosystem, right? We need an ecosystem for learning and for careers, right? And to do that, it requires some fundamental technologies, right? And so what are those? First, we like to call it equity networks, but really it's simple. This is Wi-Fi. We need to get every student connected. What was a homework gap is now a full-fledged equity gap in light of COVID. We have to get everybody online. So that's number one, right? That's a really big challenge. And to Dan's credit, they have done a phenomenal job at that. I think they're 99.5% online. So, fantastic job, Dan. So next are digital wallets, right? This is a really novel concept, and a lot of people, it makes them, it spins their head, but it's really, really simple. The idea here is that I, as a learner, on my phone, on my device, I should have a centralized place where I have a portfolio of all of my learning, right? If I have a transcript from high school, from college, from a workshop, if I have an internship, if if I learn on the job, if I learn on Khan Academy or online, I should have one place where I can have all of that and I can share that with anyone and I can prove that it's validated on the spot, right? This is the paradigm shift from a check to a credit card. Now we have from a transcript or a skill to a verifiable credential. This exists, it's happening. We're building it with MIT and W3C as an open standard that's coming out here just very rapidly. And this technology has already been proven in many industries. We're just building one that is actually like safe and controlled underneath all of the different, types of things that need to happen to make it a student wallet. We're working with the Digital Credentials Consortium. So, Philip and Kim, Kim is kind of the lead in the tech side, but really it's what's called the Universal Wallet. And we own that spec with MIT. It's a W3C standard. So W3C is the World Wide Web Coalition, I think, and they do all the standards for the web and for the internet. It's them and IEEE. And basically, we have a spec and a software developer kit that we're doing with W3C that we and MIT own, and that will be out in January. And then that's rolling into some other stuff we can talk about. Yeah, there's lots of great work at MIT, but very specifically, the Digital Credentials Consortium is really focused on verifiable credentials. And so we're moving that through into a standard. The U.S. Department of Ed, Lego Foundation have both funded this work. So this is, it's great work. So next, the next utility is skills libraries, right? The idea here is we need skills data down to the course level, right? We need to know when I take a course, I need to know what skills I'm earning. This is, to Greg's credit, Greg and his team have created CASE and Open Salt, which takes IMS and just, it has done this on a global scale. So I don't think there are better experts when it comes to this. In addition, then you need to have that portable between standards, right? If I'm a learner, I need to be able to transfer my information between any institution across borders, et cetera. The portability is being done at IEEE. We're co-chairing that. Actually, I think Greg is co-chairing. We're secretary on that. But that work is being done, by a variety of different institutions. But it's well underway, and before long, we'll have that between all the different data standards. So that'll be a pretty simple plug and play for a lot of different ecosystems. And finally, you need to be able to tune that. You need to be able to understand, the skills and understand how they relate to your goals. And then a really, really important piece, the Universal Publisher, right? This is about having trusted issuers, verified credentials, and be able to publish achievements, right? So this work is the one that is really, really needed right now. The Skills Lab, or I'm sorry, everything we've seen before is well underway. The Universal Publisher is a piece that is a necessity, that it doesn't have as much attention as it deserves. It's one that Greg and his team and Dan and Matt and others who are working on it have architected. They've got it ready to go. They understand the pieces of it. It needs funding. So this is the piece that Broward and Chicago could add to this global ecosystem. So this is a really important piece, but the idea here is we need to be able to have a publisher that can connect the rest of it, right? And so that's the work they are proposing to do in Broward. And from there, you have what's, I like to call a learning or career GPS, right? At this point, we should be able to navigate through the value centers, right? It should be simple for me. If I want an education, if I want a career in healthcare, I should be able to easily navigate through all the different value centers and know what those are, right? And I should be able to direct myself and redirect as the world changes and my passions change, right? And this should be commonplace and simple, straight to my goal and then beyond. And so that's really the, and that's the idea. And when you bring it all together, that's why we call ourselves Learning Economy Foundation. The idea here is that with all of those utilities, we have an ecosystem and an infrastructure where skills have the same currency as a degree, right? Like this is it's that learning economy, that skills economy that has been fabled. Like it's possible now, it can be built, and it's well on its way. And so, that really represents the internet of education, right? Those are what we're doing. We have a lot of great work. I think that what we're doing with Lego is really remarkable, and it needs what they're trying to do in Broward. So at Lego Foundation, we are working to bring all this into reality, right? The idea here, it's called a Super Skills Lab that is really the foundation for what will be called a Skills Lab. The Skills Lab is basically a white labelable, open source, open standards technology that any city, state, or nation can deploy that brings together all of the stuff we just talked about, right? So let's make this simple, let's make it deployable, let's make it safe. So this digital wallet, you have the wallet on one side, right, which I won't hang on. You have, in the middle, you have pathways. This is quests, right? The idea here, this is, built off 2 dots. it's a scroller, like a vertical scroller. It starts at module 1 and it goes up forever. And as you go, you kind of go through your career or you go through your lifelong learning. And each module basically links off to different education. You're not learning in the app, it's linking off to education. So this can connect to apps, it can connect to CLRs, and actually go into traditional education. And you can have side paths, right? So one of the pathways might be algebra, right? And so you're going to have a 12-point, you're going to go through lots of different pathways to receive certain algebra, credentials, etc. And through that, you earn credentials and skills and points, and you level up. So for a learner, it's like, great, if I'm on level 22, and to get to level 23, I need 7 teamwork points, 9 algebra points, 12 teamwork points, etc. And then I'm going to get a new level, and I'm going to get invisibility or something, right? But the beauty of this is that it's verifiable on a blockchain, and that you begin earning. Why is this important? Because when you think about equity, in my mind, the most important thing that we can think about when it comes to equity is to actually allow the learner to feel like they're earning their education and they're collecting it, and it's actually building on itself. When I went to school, I didn't have that. I got done with school and I had a PDF at the end that I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, it seems like, and I felt like it was a big waste of time, right? But if what I had at the end was a portfolio of all my skills and all my earnings, I could go to my employer and say, here's why I have value, I would have known, right? So the idea here is that a learner along the way is actually intrinsically, without knowing what the word equity means, they're earning it, and they know what it, and they understand it, because they're along the way, they're earning all of these great achievements and they're collecting them. The idea is, let's gamify education so that we can move more kids to the end of high school, into college, into the workforce in a way that is self-empowered, right? And so that's really what this is about. And essentially, it's built on this internet of education, right? So again, we're deploying it. Next year, we're doing all kinds of great pilots across the world. But really, where I want to draw our attention to is phase 3, right? In phase 3, in 2021, if we're going to take this technology that will roll out as what's called a skills lab for any city, state, or nation to employ this and white label it, like the Chicago Skills Lab, the Colorado Skills Lab, the Japan Skills Lab, we need the publisher to connect all these pieces, right? The publisher allows for us to create, verified issuers, verified credentials, et cetera. And that's a really important piece that we're hoping one of these labs will do while we're doing this. So when we get to next year and it's time for us to start taking this to scale, that we can. And so from there, we have great support from around the world, World Economic Forum, the G20, UNESCO, et cetera. They're all, Brookings, everyone are doing reports on this. It's going to be a really big deal. And so whoever can help us get this publisher done will create a legacy that will scale around the world. And all of these big global forums are going to be touting it and just pushing it around. So that's really essentially it, and this is what we need. We have a digital wallet, a library, pathways. A lot of this is already funded, as you can see on the right side. The piece that's left that's needed is the publisher. It's a universal publisher. So it's not really an entity. It's a universal, it's very much like the universal wallet. It's a open source, open standards publisher. It's a universal space that can be created in Broward, but in the end, what happens with it is it becomes a piece of the underneath infrastructure that anyone that wants to install a skills lab can deploy, and they can have their own publisher that can connect to the global publisher, et cetera. If that makes
Julia,
sense.
think of the publishers, the groups that are providing the platforms upon which the individual technologies are being built and modified over time. What's the connecting infrastructure, the landscape? Somebody has to connect, create a landscape in a digital space.
And there's a threat here, right? Because if we don't do this right now, open standards, open source, it will be done by the infrastructure companies who are coming in to centralize and own this, and they will own the data. And it will be a whole different, we will repeat all of the problems we had in 20th century education. It'll be repeated again because the big infrastructure companies are going to come in and try to own this. And we have an opportunity right now, and to really do this in a way that is learner centered and not institution
and I like, this is enterprise agnostic. Whether one is in a traditional K-12 public school, a charter school, a private school, a home school, this is saying learning is learning, right? And that in fact, the learning transcends all of the mechanisms by which we develop kids. And I think that is tremendously important. And just having done some work in Zimbabwe and the Gambia and in Turkey and some of these other places around the world, those kids and those families were just as passionate about what they wanted their kids to be able to do. But the label of were they only getting the local credit, or were they tied to the Cambridge exam system or the US advanced placement system, was actually hierarching their opportunities. There was no equity around that. And we see the same kinds of things play out here in the K-12 system. I see this as transcending so much of that and leaving those biases behind. Because what this is saying is, can you prove your learning? Can you carry it with you? Can you provide it on demand to higher ed, private sector? Because it can be authenticated and it's quickly accessed, right? Whether to the blockchain or not, I don't have to mail away for a transcript. I'm carrying it with me in a verifiable way. The same way I carry a credit card to verify my cash bank account, my financial health, here I have educational currency and educational health. I want every one of my graduates here in Broward leaving with that wallet.
And I'll connect the publisher idea to experience that you've got. You know, Chris talked about the GPS, the learning GPS. And the thing that makes the GPS on your phone useful is that the businesses and the organizations have published, you know, that are on the map, have published their location, you know, to that map, so that it knows your location and the destinations that you can go. Mm-hmm. And you got to have both things in order to have that personalized pathing useful. So you can think of the publisher as the way that organizations, that those individuals' skilling opportunities get on the map. And that's really, really critical. And so an example in Chicago, right? There's a consortium called the Chicago Learning Exchange that is funded by the city and CPS and a bunch of the local philanthropies that aggregates all of the out of school and summer learning programs for the city. So they have, I think 75,000 students that go through all the cluster programs that are in the Chicago Learning Exchange every summer. They're actually the only city during COVID that still had their summer learning programs run this summer. And what they're looking to do with the Internet of Education is to make all of that learning, all of that summer learning, all of the out of school time learning count for in-school credit, and for the city colleges of Chicago, that they've worked out an agreement so that the city colleges will say, yes, if you did this experience or you gained these skills in this summer learning opportunity, that will shorten your time to getting a credential here. As well as,
and so the publisher lets us connect that.
Yeah,
I don't mean to have no right time, but the publisher lets us do that, right? Without the publisher, all those pieces are fragmented and disconnected. The publisher lets us bring it all into a unified platform where they can crosswalk that information, the learner can have it on their wallet, and the registrars can have it in their systems.